Breezy day here on the Colorado Front Range, but warm. So we're going to take advantage of this early spring weather to continue getting the Jeep ready for the summer wheeling season, which starts late here in Colorado. I've been wanting to upgrade my steering from the stock XJ to something just slightly heavier duty. There's several options for that. I'll post a link to the Reddit thread down in the description, but the one I went with combines a mixture of ZJ Grand Cherokee and TJ Jeep Wrangler parts that fit the same geometry, but are a little bit heavier duty overall. Pros and cons. Pros, it's going to be a heavier duty setup. My current tie rod is bent just a little bit, so we're going to strengthen that up. Cons, anytime you remove one weak link, if you cause damage, it's going to cascade to the next one. In this case, very possibly the steering knuckles would be the next thing that could potentially break in a hard hit. If you look underneath the Jeep there, you can see that what we're going to be tackling is removing a ball joint over here on the passenger side, and then disconnecting the steering stabilizer, moving the ball joint up here at the pitman arm, and then the other end of the tie rod over here on the driver's side. And you can see my tie rod has a little bit of bending and rust on it. It's fairly flimsy the way it's designed, but I think this will be worth it for our use case, so let's see what we got. We're using all Moog parts for this particular application, but there are other vendors you can buy from if that's your thing. So first off, we're going to need these two heavy-duty adjusting sleeves. That's one, and that's two. Part number is ES-2079S. We're going to need two of these stubby tie rod ends. Have to install the grease zerk right there, but otherwise this is fully assembled, and that goes into one of those adjusting sleeve ends. Both of those are ES3096L. Next up, we have a replacement drag link. This one we do need to install the ball on and maybe add a little bit of grease. With that, there's the ball joint that attaches up on the pitman arm, and if all works well, so then our tie rod is going to attach down here, and our steering stabilizer should attach up here. We'll see how that all fits when we get down in there. That was DS-1430. Finally, we have our replacement tie rod. Much heavier duty than the stock XJ one. Another ball joint that we need to finish assembling, and it looks like it could use a little extra grease up in there. And this one does have a grease zerk, but it looks like it's made to insert on the side here, which is convenient because that makes it a little easier to get to. And the parts and pieces that go with that are down in the bottom of the box. That was DS-1312. It's a different day, so I've changed shirts, but otherwise we are going to do one more part in the same area while we get this job completed, and that is Moog DS-1235, and this is the track bar. There's the miscellaneous parts and pieces. This is another part with a bushing. Interestingly, it's a two-stage bushing. There's a metal sleeve inside there to limit the travel, but this end also has a ball joint, and this is a greasable one, so we'll be inserting the zerk. Main problem with this one, as we'll see when we get under there, this here is fairly straightforward unless the bolt starts slipping on the locking tab. And then this ball joint here comes up in kind of an awkward area. You can't get to it easily from the top or the bottom. It's not that hard to access, it's just you can't really see it while you're working on it. But we should be able to get at it. Coming out here to the XJ, we might actually be able to do that job without removing the front tires, but it's going to be a little bit easier to get to everything if I do. So it's the usual steps to go ahead and chock the rear wheels and then jack and lift the front. Want to go ahead and loosen all the front lugs while we're on the ground. These are removable using a 19. As always, when working with a circular bolt pattern, go in a star in order to relieve pressure in an even pattern, not because it's necessary when removing them, but because it is pretty important when you're putting them back on. So it's a good habit to develop. Next, I'm lifting this vehicle by the front differential in order to get it up on jack stands and remove the wheels off the ground. This jack shouldn't get too much in the way, so for now I'm just going to go ahead and leave it right there as a backup. Now for my failsafe, I'm just going to put the wheel here under the frame rail so that if it comes crashing down, it stops on something before it completely destroys the front end. Now we just need to get busy disassembling all that. As we continue, we now need to work out an optimal order of disassembly. The obvious one to take off first is the steering stabilizer here. Don't want that flopping around and possibly even damaging the stabilizer. Second one, I think, though, is going to be the one on top of the pitman arm there. And that'll leave the whole assembly still semi-supported by both of the two ends, and then I can disassemble each of the two ends while working outside the vehicle. Now this steering stabilizer has been replaced. I think it was just a Napa OE, and I can't remember if it used all the original bolts. So anyway, this may not be the OE size, but for today, it's going to be a 19. There we go. Let's see if I can just pull on it. No, it's pretty tight actually. This is a pitman arm puller, but it turns out to be useful for a lot of things that aren't pitman arms if you use it carefully. Waiting for the bang. Oh yeah, there we go. Stabilizer is free. Left a nice little divot in the bottom of the bolt there too. That's fun. Now coming over here, that connection between the tie rod, crosspiece, and the drag link, I'm gonna leave that in place. We're gonna have to pull some cotter pins, so we might as well just do all those at once. There we go. Picked off the end over here, so brace myself against the pillar here, and there we go. No broken teeth. And finally we've got whatever's going on the pitman arm up here. There we go. That's 3. All right, next up, but I'm gonna go ahead and loosen all 3 of these, and then I'll pop them out. And I'm not gonna fully pull the nut off, which is really what I should have done on the steering stabilizer also. That way there's no risk that when the puller breaks the ball joint free that it just flies off. Not tight at all. Okay, so right there it should be good. Oh, that one's loose. Wasn't expecting that. Okay, I think we got purchase. Well, it's starting to wedge up into the steering box up here, and I don't like that. Got this low profile bar here, so let's try that. There we go. One more. Okay. Nope, still wants to split. There's always one that causes trouble on these jobs. Well, let's try it like this for a minute. There we go. That was all it took. Go ahead and drop this permanently now. So that's one out. Take this one out next. There's our complete linkage removed. Now we need to go set up the new one to fit the same way. This end obviously goes one way only. I don't know if that's much beefier. It's a very similar style bar, but it'll do the job. Oh, and there almost looks a little heftier than this one. I'm not sure why though. So those are basically lined up. Eye to eye right there. Eye to eye there. Okay. Now let's see if this screws on the way it's supposed to. Well, sort of. A little anti-seize would not hurt. Getting there. Yeah, that's actually pretty close. Now I get to do the same thing again. Huh. Hope I don't have a bad sleeve. Almost looks like the threads might be bad. All right, down to the bench. See if opening that up just a little bit does the trick. It's never just simple, is it? It's almost like this is too big, isn't it? It's supposed to be the right one. Is it reverse threaded? Yeah, I'm an idiot. Of course it's reverse threaded. What else would it be? Glad I came down here though, because this is kind of a pain. All right, let's take that back outside and figure out where that lands now next to the other one. No, that's lined up enough to make it drivable. Okay, that's pretty tight. And I think we saw that those sleeves are not prone to walking out anyway. Although I suppose they will loosen up a bit after time, or maybe seize up if these bolts rust. Now let's head back outside and figure out how to get the other arm put together. Now, this one here, I'm less confident about. I have to do the same thing again, but I think if I put this one this way, the adjusting sleeve over here is going to bind up in this. So I'm wondering if that was intended to be this way with the tie rod on the end. Is this forward threaded? That's forward threaded. But I definitely want this centered on there so that I have the meat in the middle. Oh, there we go. It's not too bad. This is just about right if I continue turning this one until it hits that stop point there. But I gotta take that downstairs again. Pretty much there. Let's go ahead and tighten this one up because I'm pretty sure this one here is done. All right, one final check here. Did we get it? So if I put that one dead center on that, this one over here appears to be pretty much there. Okay, this should now go like that. We'll finish tightening that in place later. Let's go do a test fit, see if everything still fits where it's supposed to. That'll be plenty. That's the way things are supposed to be fitting. This here I don't like the look of. It's super dry in there. Even pushing grease in the backside might not be enough, so we'll wipe a little around the inside of the front here and then grease it from the back after it's together. Okay. There's the boot. And I seize on our castle nut. Might have to swing that around. And there we go. Get that started. Okay, so that's 2. That one's definitely looking better. I see a lot more grease in there. Won't hurt to add just another little shot right there though. And now this one should come up in one and only one spot, and everything is now locked back into its native geometry. While we're here, let's see if we can go and get that steering stabilizer put back in. There we go. Uh-oh. I see a problem. It's gonna scrape my differential guard. So I wonder if I flip this around, get this snugged up a bit. This one we're confident where it has to be, so I'm gonna start tightening it in a bit more. I should probably look up the torque spec on that. But he did not check the torque spec, which is most unwise, and is not an example to be followed. But I'm pretty sure whatever it is, it's supposed to be more than what it was when I found it. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Go get a torque wrench, son. So what happens if we turn that around? And this up here, it's a little better. Yeah. There we go. Okay. That explains why this one's on the bottom. It is what it is. Now it fits. Okay, so we got this one, and this one. So that's 3 so far. Still need the top of the pitman arm and the driver's side. Oh, it's tight anyway. Okay, so I just need to put in cotter pins, grease zerks, and then we should be just about there. I didn't exactly like the cotter pins that came with this, so I pulled the next size larger out of my Harbor Freight kit. I don't see those going anywhere. All right, last step here is I need to install these grease zerks You're just supposed to thread in. And this is a 7mm head. And I do not want to over tighten these because I'll just blast it right through that steel. Okay, that's as tight as that needs to be. Again, check these periodically because as soon as it gets flush, it won't feel like it's tightening much, but it's in. Okay, that right there's, yeah, that's it. Sweet. Okay, that's it. One more to go. This one here's kind of an oddball one because it's off on the side rather than the back, which is sensible because if it was on the back, you couldn't really get to it. I've just not seen that before. I guess that's in the threads. Let's find out. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that one right there is into the steel forging, casting, whatever that thing is. So it definitely stops. Next thing here, first let's just clear any dirt out of there. When in doubt, flush it out. Don't want to overfill it, but 3 shots feels about right. Make sure the grease circuit closed, because if it doesn't, it'll ooze back out. Looks like the ball came down, so that's good. Good. Okay, so that's the whole front end lubricated. The only thing I haven't done recently is a slip joint on my front drive shaft, but since that was just replaced very recently, it should be in great shape. Last thing we really need to do is just check the end-to-end travel, make sure it stays clear of the differential there, but everything's looking good. The geometry lined up exactly like the old one, so I'm not too worried, but let's just get the keys in the ignition, spin it, and see what happens. Ooh, it almost kisses the diff guard there, but not quite. But everything else is clear. And that's an extreme left turn, so not too worried about that really. That's definitely in an awkward position. If you kind of look back up in here, you sort of get a view on it. There's this tab down here that's supposed to lock it to keep it from spinning. This is a Colorado vehicle, so the rust is not bad on it at all. But because of that location, I try and use a little PB blaster if I can. That's gonna be stinky, but I'm afraid of that bolt winding up in there and then spinning on the tab. And that's gonna turn a short job into a longer job. It's a surprisingly small head, all things considered. Looks like I can take it off with a 15. Let's see how tight that actually is on there. Pretty tight, I'd say. Oh, there we go. I think it turned. Looks like mostly I'm just turning off my socket head there. Well, we'll try it with a proper wrench and see what happens. You know what? I think that tab's about to pop up in there. Something's trying to turn. I'm not sure what though. Maybe one of those is rusted into the bushing eye. Let's get some more oil in there. Okay, that should do something. Feels like. Oh, yeah, there we go. There it is. I'm surprised those welds held. Now it looks like I gotta get this prized out of here somehow though. Pretty sure it's frozen into the bushing eye. Might end up having to cut the bolt after all. But in the meantime, got a bolt right there to try and tackle. So let's see if we can get at that. There it is. Now the question is that a 19 like all the last ones? It's a 19. Oh man, talk about a weird location. Well, maybe a 19mm wrench. That one might be eating a torch. There we go. That was what it took. Now we'll let that soak in for a minute and then go after it again and make sure it comes loose. I'm cutting through something. Let's say that should be about ready to come. Should be right ready to break. There we go. There we go. One old dead track bar. Successfully removed. Okay, now we're ready to install the new track bar. It's actually a different day. I ran out of light last night, and frankly, the ace was already closed. I checked my stockpile. I didn't have another bolt. I'm replacing the original one, which was just a standard hex head and washer, with this one. This is another grade 8. And this one here, if I feed it through, it just barely comes to here on the other side. And that's what you want. You really don't want a whole bunch of threads going through the middle of the center there. The other thing I've already tried to do is I have rotated my ball joint so that I can get the cotter pin straight through this way. If it was turned around and I didn't discover that till it was already up in there, it'd be a bit more of a pain to deal with. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by pinning this down here, just shoving the bolt through for the moment, and then get the ball joint started up there, and then I'll pull this back out and get it properly covered in anti-seize. The only other thing that may have happened since the vehicle's been sitting is the track bar is meant to keep the axle located, so it's possible it's shipped slightly to the right or slightly to the left. If it has, I might end up needing to use a ratchet strut just to pull the suspension over a 1/4 inch or so, but let's find out. Nope, right on center, so that's good. I'm not getting enough thread through there to... That's not much though. A little bit of anti-seize on that to make it spin nice and free. Oh, just barely. Okay, now we're getting closer. I don't know what the torque is supposed to be on this, and I'm not sure I can even get a torque wrench up in here comfortably to find out. But it's going to be this speck of Guten type. And since we do have a cotter pin on it, it's not going to just walk out. Actually, that's not looking too bad at all. A few more turns, and then make sure we line up the castle nut, put the pin through, and we're done. There we are. Ah, got it. So that finishes the ball joint other than this grease zerk. But before we get to that, let's go and do our pin bolt back down there. Something else I did off camera, which is optional, but it seemed like a good idea at the time. So I just knocked some of the excess rust off of this and then hit it with Rust-Oleum's rust converting black paint. There we go. I guess the ball joint over there might loosen up a bit if I manhandle it just a bit. There we go. Okay, it's starting to come through already. One important thing about this track bar is if you weren't working with the vehicle on the ground like we are now, you do want to get it back to ride height before you torque this one down, because that bushing there should be unstressed at resting position. If you torque it down while you're in the air and then the track bar settles, you're going to permanently put a twist on that bushing and will cause it to wear out faster. I don't know how much this is actually supposed to be torqued. That's feeling like a lot though. Now granted, this is a cheap Pittsburgh wrench. It probably stretches a bit, but I don't think that's coming off. All right, grease zerk. A delicate little thing just like the others. No, that's just about it. Yeah. Looks like it had a decent amount of grease in there when but anyway. Well, there it is, another job done. Fortunately, parts for the Jeep series vehicles are still pretty cheap compared to other old vehicles. And by using a mix and match of parts, we were able to get everything put back together in a nice, slightly reinforced state that should last us a good long time. Now, as you saw, there were a couple difficult parts in there, in particular having to saw that one seized bolt, and if you have a vehicle from the Salt Belt, there's probably going to be a few more than just that one. Nonetheless, that's the basis of the work. It's just more nuts and bolts. You have to be willing to put in the wrench time, but other than getting it aligned when you're done, there's not a whole lot else you need. So if you've got some work waiting for you on your vehicle, then hopefully that inspires you to get outside, get yours working, get it fixed, get it upgraded, whatever you want to do with it. make it useful and make it yours. We'll see you again next time, whenever that is. Well, no, son, you can't do that way. What are you trying to do there? That's not right. Well, bah! Has anyone seen my phone?